Hello, thanks for joining us again on the EduTalk Show. The EduTalk Show is brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. In our previous episodes, we brought you conversations on the development process for a proposed curriculum for senior high schools by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. As part of the development process, the proposed curriculum has been trialed in some schools across the country. Well, today and in this episode, we're hearing the perspective of some teachers who were part of the trial process. Stay with us on the EduTalk Show. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us on the EduTalk Show, brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. As I was indicating earlier, today we are hearing the perspectives of teachers on the development of this new curriculum for senior high schools across the country by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NACA. Well, I'm fortunate to be joined by Michael Donkor, who is a mathematics teacher at the St. Peter's Senior High School. And guess what? We also have Victoria Osei Nimako, who is a financial and accounting teacher at the SDA Senior High School at Chim Setra, all joining us to share their experiences about this proposed curriculum for senior high schools across the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the EduTalk Show. You are so fortunate to be part of, the teachers that are trying out this proposed curriculum for senior high schools across the country. But what's the typical feeling like? What's exciting you, first of all, about this proposed curriculum? Well, ladies first, right? So let's start with Victoria.
Okay, so far so good. The trialing went well, and it was very, very interesting. What I saw was in the drafted curriculum, it has a lot of ICT gadgets. So we have to be 21st century. We have to locate, yes, learners. So basically, it was okay. What I saw was most of the time the drafted curriculum provided the resources, or it was stated in the drafted curriculum, the resources that you need to use in teaching a particular topic, and that was fantastic.
So you have new requirements in terms of the resource materials that you need?
Sure. Basically, it depends on the school.
Okay. Right.
Some schools have it, others don't have.
Okay.
If you are, I think I was just going through the curriculum and I realized that you have to take the students or the learners to a field trip. Here lies the case, my school, for example, you don't have a school bus. So how can you take the student to a field trip? So it depends on the school.
So it depends on the school,
yes,
and how you would improvise and
sure,
make do with that. But for you, Mr. Donkor, as well, you've been teaching mathematics for quite some time now. What's exciting you about this proposed curriculum?
The excitement is about the fact that now we engage the students more. Unlike the previous one where the teacher goes to the class and looks as if he's a repository of knowledge. But now when you go to the class, there are different ability groups within the class. So we group them. In terms of content, you know how to deliver. In terms of how they pick the material you're giving out, you take care of it. So we have what we call the differentiation in the new curriculum. You differentiate your learners, you differentiate the content, and in the assessment, you even differentiate it.
Wow. So it's not the usual case where you have a class
it's not
of 40.
The usual case.
A class
you
of 40
have a class
and then
of 40,
yes,
you have different categories of students in the class. So if I'm taking set theory, I know that the below average can do 2 sets. The average student can do 2 sets with a modification. The above average student can do 3 sets. So if I'm giving assessment, I'm going to give assessment based on these 3 categories of students in my class.
Well, so Michael was just talking about how you identify students in class based on their performance, but would that not make the work difficult for you as teachers?
Not really, because when Michael was talking, he said average students, below average and above average. But with this drafted new curriculum, we have new terms for it. The below average, we now call them the approaching proficiency. Okay. Then average students are now called the proficient learners or students. Right. Then the above average students are called the highly proficient ones. We are not finding it difficult, sincerely speaking, because sometimes you can do background investigation of your learners. Basically, when they come, the first day of your lesson is just introduction. So they just introduce themselves. Oh, me, I'm from this place, me, I'm from that place. Then sometimes after that, you can just go to the administration, get their folder or their file, go through the kind of grade that you brought to school. So be able to tell them, okay, this student is a good student. And probably if you don't go to...
Do you do that based on the grades they come with? Or you want to observe them?
No, always. Because sometimes you see there's somebody who come with a better grade. Okay. But you give me a grade 6. So you think that the person will be a very good student. And when you go to the class, you give questions, the type of answers you are expecting from the learner, you don't get it. So sometimes you just have to give them maybe some test, a try test. Right. So after the try test, you'll be able to know or differentiate that, okay, this is average, highly proficient, proficient, highly proficient, or approaching proficient.
But then you keep all of them in the same class. You don't segregate them at all? You don't do that?
That is where JC comes in.
Okay, and when you say JC, what exactly are you referring to?
Gender equality, social inclusion.
Right.
JC, let me pick the first one, that is gender. Depending on your school, other schools have mixed school. My school, we are a mixed school, so we have boys and girls in each class. Yes, with the exception of probably the home econs class that most of the times you see only ladies there. So in the class, you make sure that if you are grouping them, you just don't allow only females or ladies to be in one group and the guys to also be in another group. You should just mix them. And they start from equal. You should give everybody the equal opportunity.
Not because one is female and one is male.
No. You shouldn't say that Kofi came with a grade 8. So in terms of me, when I come to class, you let him talk or answer more questions than Ikuya who came with a grade, maybe 42 or something. It shouldn't work that way. Social inclusion, you have to consider the background, everything about the student. Sincerely speaking, if you are teaching ladies, you realize that getting to the end of the month, when they have their menses, you sometimes go to the class and they are not just filling the class at all. So you shouldn't be shouting on them. You always have those things in mind.
So you need to be sensitive towards the students.
Sure.
And for the eye?
That is the inclusion. You should bring everybody on board. Right. You should bring everybody on board, no matter whether you just consider the disabled, everybody in the class.
And that makes it inclusive. But Michael, it will be a very Herculean task for you, because in your case, you teach in a male-dominated, in fact, it's a boys' school, let's put it that way. So how will you go about enforcing all of these requirements?
As my sister said rightly, you pick the background of the students and group them according to their abilities. When you group them, you are able to handle them. There's 3 categories of students in the same class. Not that you are going to separate them. You handle them. The students themselves wouldn't even know that is what is behind that grouping. They wouldn't know that some of them are average or as near average.
You don't even have to tell them.
You don't.
Okay. Right.
They wouldn't be aware. Even within the group, they wouldn't know why you included this man or that one inside. So the grouping is not all that difficult.
And I also noticed that it will provide you, the teachers as well, to upgrade your skills. For instance, you're talking about the inclusion of some laptops and some gadgets now in teaching. That never used to be the case for you, Michael.
Yes, it comes with a cost. It comes with a cost, because a lot of us are struggling to update our skills and knowledge on ICT.
We're not used to it.
We're not used to it. So it behoves on us to also improve ourselves.
Okay, so Victoria, during the trial, what sort of response did you get from the students?
Okay, their responses were just positive. And I quite remember after the trial from Abetifi, the workshop that I went, they taught us some new terms. Instead of you using, oh, clap for him, clap for her, just, oh, let's appreciate him or her. Let's give him or her an Ekwe Donkor greeting or parliamentary greeting. So sometimes in the class, when somebody answers the question, so, madam, you have forgotten something. So, oh, madam, let them appreciate me. So you just do that. And so far, so good. They are really enjoying it.
Michael, do you notice any peculiar change in the approach towards, say, teaching or even the style of teaching now under this proposed curriculum?
Under the proposed curriculum, the change that has actually taken place are the 5 thematic areas she mentioned earlier. She talked about Jesse, she talked about cell, she talked about the inclusion of ICT, she talked about 21st century thinking, and then the differentiation. These are the areas that the new proposed curriculum is stressing on. And all these 5 thematic areas must be found in one lesson. In the lesson preparation,
you must be mindful of
all these items. So that is what makes the new curriculum new from the system.
But when you were speaking, you touched on the categorization of the students based on their level of performance. But Victoria, we know that there are some students who have special needs.
Yes.
How are you dealing with that under this proposed curriculum as well?
The special needs comes in different ways. We have other students, they have special needs in learning. Okay, so they have to take them through intervention. So you have to get extra time for them so that they can catch up with the proficient learners. That is why we have the mixed ability groupings. So in a group, let's assume that we have a group of 8. I'll just pick 3 students who are highly proficient, 3 who are maybe the proficient, and 2 who are just approaching the proficient, so that in group meetings or in group studies, they can get help.
Each other.
You know, students learn better when they are with their peers. And there are some, when you go to class, they will never talk. But when you miss them or when they are in groups, you feel okay talking to each other.
But Michael, is it the case that, and you've been teaching for quite some time now, is it the case that this was not happening in the past or under the current regime that we have? And how is this proposed curriculum addressing some of these special needs?
It was happening. For instance, in St. Peter's, I can rightly say that we were doing some of these things, but silently. You know, the Teaching Act is a community of practice. What the new curriculum seeks to stress on is the fact that if I'm doing A in St. Peter's, maybe Form 1, it should be done in SDA. Good. So it was done silently, but the stress is what the new curriculum seeks to.
So when you did the trial, were you mindful of this, and how did that change, for instance, the approach and the style towards teaching?
When we did the trial, what I noticed is that because of the interactive nature of the lessons, students who used to sleep in class were now active. You get it? So we're doing some things unaware, but the new curriculum seeks to stress on the fact that it should be done across board. And
that's what you're changing under this new one. But, you know, the issue about the special needs that we're talking about, is it the case that under the previous or the existing regime, all these things were not practiced and that you're not catering for the special needs of students?
It was practiced. For instance, if a student has challenge in seeing well, every teacher brings that students forward. We're doing it. If a student has hearing problem, he comes forward. You have a way of taking care of that child. But as I said earlier, the new curriculum now stresses on that. Maybe a teacher A in A school is doing it, but the other teacher, maybe next school, is not doing it. But the point is that now the new curriculum stresses on the fact that if you have students with such special needs, you would have to It's a compulsion. You would have to take care of them, given the provisions. You get it? Yeah.
Okay, so now we are getting to hear from our teachers on the proposed curriculum for senior high schools as being developed by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. But when we get back, I'm interested in finding out chew, pour, pass, and forget. That trend, is it being addressed by this proposed curriculum? We'll find out after this break. You're watching the Edge Talk Show. We'll be right back. And you're welcome back from that break. You're watching the Edu Talk Show brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. We're still taking the perspectives of teachers on the development of a curriculum for senior high schools by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. And of course, the trial has taken place, and we're just, of course, continuing with the conversation with Michael Donkor, who's a mathematics teacher, joining us from St. Peter's, and also Victoria Osei Nimako, joining us from the SDA Senior High School at Chim Sechere. And of course, when we left off, I indicated that I would want to touch on the issue about chew, pour, pass, and forget. I'm sure that when you were students, you tried that as well. We all do that.
We did.
And that's what the problem, apparently, as some experts have told us about this current regime or current curriculum that we are running. Under the proposed reforms that will take place, how will the proposed curriculum deal with this issue of chew, pour, pass, and forget?
I think with this, the drafted curriculum, it's more of practical oriented. Sometimes whilst we are in school, we just talk about pollination, we talk about so many things without we, the students, or we, the learners, having a feel of how it's...
Sometimes we just draw it in our books.
Sure, cross-pollination or other things. Right. So, but this time around, the new curriculum emphasized on allowing we, the teachers, guiding the students to know the practical aspects of it all. So if you see something, we are talking about mesh cropping, I think the students have to go on field and see what mesh cropping is. So it's not always about just learning what mesh cropping is, but you get the in-depth knowledge about it. They have the practical aspects of it as well.
And do you plan your lessons accordingly?
Yes, with the new, the drafted curriculum, yes. I think there is an introduction of a lesson planner, and sincerely speaking, it entails a lot. So you just have to plan your lesson very well before you go to class.
So how do you go about the lesson plan?
The lesson plan with this new curriculum, I think, is something that is a must. We have to have it before you go to class. See, I must be frank here. We don't normally stick to what we do in our lesson plan, simply because sometimes you'll be in week 17 or week 4, your headmaster will say, okay, I'm coming to inspect your lesson notes or your lesson plan. So you just have to just write anything at all. Okay, I'm treating by reconciliation statement. But indeed, when you get to the classroom, you realize that we are even teaching a different topic. So there is no coordination between what is in your lesson plan and what we do in the classroom. But with this new curriculum, as I earlier said, you should plan your lesson. You should make available the resources that you need.
So it's now being made compulsory?
Yes.
Under the proposed curriculum?
Sure. Because you have to plan.
Right.
Plan ahead, you know the resources that you need. So if I don't have such resources, I just have to get them even before I go to class.
So what are the requirements?
In the lesson planner?
Yes.
Okay. We have to go along with your teaching and learning materials. Sincerely speaking, there are number of learning materials around us, of which if you want to go to the class, you just look around. The ones that are available, you just go to the class with it. And I realized something, that with the new curriculum, there is something that we normally do, but let me say the new curriculum just stressing on that. It's called starter. We know starter to be something we take before we eat, okay? But this time around, the starter is what the teacher does just to get the attention of the learners. Right. So let's assume I'm just going to talk about business entity. I can just go to the classroom, ask about, okay, what work that your mother do? My mother is a farmer, my dad is a banker. So those questions will just let them have the feel of, so what is madam going to teach at all? You just link those starters or those questions, you just link it to whatever subject that you want to
But I'm also interested in the aspect of assessments. And Michael, you are a mathematics teacher. And when we talk about this, pour, pass, and forget, you find that mostly in mathematics. For those of us who really don't like the subject, you just want to, get everything right and pour it down onto the paper. But now, under this proposed curriculum, how are you going about assessment to tackle that?
Well, what the new curriculum seeks to address on this pour, pass, and forget, what we call road learning, the new curriculum seeks to address those issues. And what I identified in there is that a lot of the topics have been merged, making the work lighter on the learner. Also, we have what we call the 21st century thinkers. We are training the learners to be 21st century thinkers. And in that process, you make them glow local. Glow local means you are training them to be local citizens and at the same time global citizens. So in the process of assessment, you look at their abilities and give them the assessment. And when you give them the assessment, you expect that each learner participates in bringing out the solution. I have about 3 groups in my class. I give them a set of questions. This group will come up with their solution. Another group will come up with their solution. The same problem has different ways of getting the solution. So in effect, all the 3 groups, we have a feel of what this group is bringing. Group A, Group B, Group C, we have a...
But in a subject such as mathematics, how easy would that be? Because
we have different approaches.
We know that definitely the answer must be the same.
The answer must be the same. But if you look at most of the topics in mathematics, we have different ways of approaching it. And if you engage the students, you get the ways. It's interesting, very interesting. When you engage the students, you will get different approaches. Sometimes the teacher might even know just 2, but a different group will bring a 3rd method
that you can use in solving
the problem.
And you were also pointing out earlier how you categorize students. When you are carrying out assessments under this proposed curriculum reform, is it the case that you assess them differently or you do everything at the same time?
Yes. Earlier, I made mention of the fact that if you want to assess the categories of students, you have a target. Maybe I want 10 marks from a learner with 3 questions, but I'll end up giving them 9 questions. 3 questions will take care of the below average. Now the term is approaching proficiency.
I like that terminology.
Proficiency.
Yes.
3 questions will take care of those who are approaching proficiency. 3 questions will take care of those who are proficient. And then another 3 questions will take care of those with the higher proficiency. So in effect, or in the long run, those approaching proficiency can pick their 3 questions from the 9 questions. Those who are proficient can even answer 6 questions because they have their 3, and then those who are approaching proficiency, the proficient ones can answer those 3. Then you go to those who are above proficiency. They can may be able to answer all the questions. But in the long run, I'm assessing them with just 3 questions. So I will get what I want from every learner in my class.
To add up to what Michael just said, we have 3 categories of students or learners in our class. And if my target is to assess them with 10 marks, we have ways and means of doing
going about it.
Yes. Let's assume that Equia is an approaching proficient learner. The type of question I should ask Equia is, Equia mention, state, list. If Kwejo is a proficient learner or student, I should be able to ask a question which is higher than list or state. Do you get me? Then the highly proficient ones will maybe discuss evaluate, describe. You see that thing.
Right.
So we have ways.
So you don't go with the similar tone of questioning for all the students.
What I also realize is many students, others can write, others too can't write. So in ways of assessing them, I think with the new curriculum, it's placing emphasis on oral assessment.
There's an opportunity for
yes.
that as well.
So it's not like, okay, you just have to write everything. So you just pick your pen. And there are other students who can't even write. So you can, if you ask them the question, they'll be able to, tell you what they know about the whole thing.
So in the development process, what should we be mindful of? What other issues or factors should we be mindful of as we consider this proposed curriculum for senior high schools?
Okay. In the draft curriculum, I realized that there were a number of TLMs provided or listed in it for the teachers to use. So what I want to tell the developers is that they should make available such resources so that it will aid in the teaching and learning.
And for you, Sir Michael?
Well, every good thing comes with a cost. So I will alert the curriculum developers to take every teacher through training so that this curriculum can be implemented very well. And I will also say that as they keep on developing the curriculum, they should also think about motivating the teacher.
So when we say motivation, what exactly
to me, motivation comes in various forms. If I have whatever I need to teach, for me, I'm motivated. Another teacher will also look at another angle. But in the long run, what I will say is that teachers are the people on the ground that will make this curriculum come into reality. They are the implementers. So I will stress, motivation is very important.
The motivation will come, definitely. We pray for that. And now you know, and I've heard the perspective for our teachers on the development process of a new curriculum for senior high schools by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. And that's all we have for you in this package of the EduTalk Show, brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. I'm Blessed Sogah, and we'll see you again in our next episode. Bye-bye for now.